Have you always thought of yourself as a shy person? And do you prefer quiet spaces? Social events exhaust you? And do you need a lot of alone time to recharge? What if that's not just introversion? What if something deeper, something fear-driven is hiding behind your so-called introvert personality? Today, we will uncover 5 signs that you might not just be introverted, but you're actually dealing with social anxiety. We will clarify common misconceptions about these two, and you will also learn where your social anxiety actually has its roots. Let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Robert, and if you're new here, I'm not a healthcare professional myself, but instead I share a client's perspective here on this channel. In recent years, introversion has become a kind of aesthetic. On social media, being quiet, being mysterious, and low energy is often romanticized, especially with labels like INFJ, the Myers-Briggs personality type, empath, or lone wolf. And while introversion is very real, a lot of people are unknowingly mistaken trauma responses for personality traits. They say, I just prefer to be alone, I'm not good with people, or I hate small talk. But the truth is, when you look a little deeper, it's not peace driving their lone wolf mentality and the I don't need anyone behavior, it's fear. Because underneath, I'm just quiet and I need to fly under the radar, is often someone who's been shamed, rejected, or unseen for who they are. Someone who learned it's safer not to be seen at all. And that's where the confusion becomes dangerous. When we mistake trauma for temperament, we stop questioning it. And even more important, it becomes part of our values and our identity. We wear it like a badge, and often we're even proud to not need anyone and stop looking for healing. Meaning, being alone isn't always a choice, sometimes it's also a wound. So now before we jump into the 5 signs of today's video, let's define introversion and social anxiety real quick so we're all on the same page. Let's start with introversion. Introversion describes people who focus more of their attention and energy on their inner life. Typically, signs of introversion are you feel drained after socializing even if you enjoyed it, you recharge alone, not because people scare you, but because you need space. You prefer deep connection over small talk, and most importantly, you enjoy solitude, not because you fear people, but because you genuinely like your own company. As a result, introverts tend to play the role of the passive observer in groups and are described by others as being quiet, reserved, and shy. And by the way, shyness is not the same thing as introversion. Shyness describes the fear of entering into social interaction with other people. There are shy introverts as well as shy extroverts. In comparison to introversion, extroversion, by the way, is found in people who focus their attention and energy more on their outer life. Social anxiety, on the other hand, looks like this. It affects an estimated of 12.1% of adults in the US. People with social anxiety disorder experience stress in social situations, including a fear of being judged or humiliated. And social anxiety can also cause physical symptoms such as a racing heart and interfere with your ability to speak or interact with others. Typical signs of social anxiety therefore are you feel tense just thinking about social interaction, you avoid people not for peace but out of panic, you live with the fear of being judged, rejected, and humiliated all the time, and also your body knows it. So your body reacts with physical symptoms, sweaty palms, tight chest, shaky voice. And by the way, I made a full episode on physical symptoms and anxiety up here, link that in the description below as well. And that's obviously then not just introversion, it's alarm. And now, if you think that these definitions were already eye-opening, let's dive into the 5 signs together. I would like to start with sign number 1, which is the most obvious sign, and then end with sign number 5, which most people most of the time overlook when it comes to social anxiety. Sign number 1 is you feel physically tense in social settings. For most introverts, social situations are just draining. But for socially anxious people, they're activating. You don't just feel tired afterwards, but you feel tense the entire time, like your body is in a constant state of alert. So as I said, sweaty palms, shallow breath, tight chest, those kind of things. And underneath it all is a pressure that feels like it's coming from inside your body, inside your central nervous system. I once made a video in the past where I also describe how this feels in the context of high sensitivity. So when you have a sensory processing sensitivity, and in highly sensitive people, physical tension is a very common sensation, like a chronic inner tension, a kind of background noise in your body that's always kind of humming, like a really kind of high baseline of nervousness that feels normal until you realize that it's not actually that normal. I'll link that full episode up here. And when that tension that I described in that episode meets social exposure as a social anxiety person, then it's not just like introversion or pulling back anymore. It's basically survival mode. Okay, up to sign number 2, you cancel plans out of panic, not out of peace. So there is a really big difference between just needing to rest and needing to escape from a social setting. Introverts might cancel plans because they generally need to recharge, so they're overstimulated and quiet time just refuels them. But with social anxiety, that's very different. Then you cancel plans because your chest is tight, because your thoughts are racing, or because you've spent the entire day just thinking about that one dinner or group event. You might also feel guilty or relieved when you are back alone. And either way, the decision isn't coming from calm, it's coming from a sense of panic here in social anxiety. And here's the hardest part about that. The more you cancel, the more isolated you feel. And the more your central nervous system believes that being around people isn't safe. So it's not just protecting your energy, it's protecting you from perceived danger that is, by the way, in 99% of the cases, not real. And that ends up in a vicious cycle, and therefore it's so important to not isolate yourself completely, but open up in tiny safe steps. Because the more you isolate, the more you have to isolate. What your nervous system can tolerate, therefore, heavily depends on how much adaptation you force. If you never go outside and isolate yourself completely and forever, even very little exposure to other people is absolutely overwhelming. Sign number 3, you crave connection but fear being seen. This one is one of the most painful and confusing parts of social anxiety. You deeply want connection, but the moment someone gets emotionally close, your system goes into shutdown mode. You dream of deep connections, of intimacy, of being understood, but when someone actually looks at you with warmth, says, "Tell me more, I can see you, I feel you," your first instinct is then often to shrink, to deflect, or to just disappear. And that's definitely not introversion again. That's your nervous system that learned that being seen is dangerous. And not rarely, this phenomenon is also closely linked to social trauma. First of all, social anxiety is second only to depressive disorders as the most common co-occurring diagnosis with trauma. Studies show if a person's primary diagnosis is PTSD, so trauma, the co-occurrence of social anxiety disorder increases to about 43%, meaning many people with social anxiety secretly developed it as a part of their childhood trauma as well, which is often the real cause for this condition. So maybe you were ashamed for your emotions, maybe no one ever mirrored who you really were. Then today, for you, visibility doesn't feel safe, it feels exposing in a way. And love doesn't feel nourishing, it feels overwhelming. And this is another typical paradox of social anxiety and childhood trauma. You're lonely, but closeness feels like a threat. And sign number 4, you're hyper-aware of how you're being received. The second least known sign is being hyper-aware of how you're being perceived. And if you have this, you might relate with this scene. You walk into a room, and you're not that super charismatic person that fills the whole room with a positive energy. No, instead, you come up feeling awkward and observed by everyone. Immediately, your brain starts scanning. What are they thinking of me? Did I do something weird already? Am I being too much? Am I being quiet? Am I being too awkward? And you're not just having a conversation with people in the room, you're running a background program of self-monitoring in real time. Every glance feels like a judgment, every silence feels like a rejection, and even when the interaction goes fine, you replay it for hours, dissenting tone, time, and micro-expressions. And this isn't obviously a form of social preference. No, this is called hypervigilance, being on edge constantly. A hypervigilant central nervous system trained to anticipate rejection before it happens. And I made a full episode about hypervigilance up here if you're interested in that topic. Introverts might prefer quiet, but social anxiety makes even quiet moments feel loud because your inner critic is narrating every second, trying to protect you from things that potentially could happen, but realistically never will. And sign number 5 that you're not just shy, you shapeshift to avoid judgment. So last but not least, a least known and very subtle sign of social anxiety. The shapeshifter is someone who becomes who they think others want them to be. And if you're like that, around loud people, for example, you get quieter. Around quiet people, you turn up your energy, and you edit your opinions, your tone, your personality all in real time. Not because you're fake, but because you've learned that being yourself might cost you connection and potentially is threatening. So deep down there is a belief. If they saw the real me, they might leave. So you stay agreeable. You make sure no one is uncomfortable, even if it means abandoning yourself. And then you walk away from the interaction thinking, why do I feel so drained? Because you weren't in the conversation, but a performance was. A version of you wearing that mask. If these signs felt painfully familiar to you, remember that you're not broken, you're not too sensitive or something like that, and you're definitely not weird or awkward. What you're experiencing here isn't a personality flaw, it's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, keeping you safe. But to break free from that cycle, we need to start by clearing up some big misunderstandings about introverts and about anxiety and about you. So let's clear a few things up here. Misconception number 1, introverts are antisocial. No, definitely not. Introverts aren't afraid of people, they're selective. They choose depth over noise, and when they say no, it's from preference and not from panic. Misconception number 2, social anxiety is a weakness. Not even close. Social anxiety is often a sign of a highly sensitive nervous system that's been wired often by fear or trauma. Remember the signs. If a person's primary diagnosis is PTSD, so trauma, the co-occurrence of social anxiety disorder increases up to 43%. So it's not about being dramatic, it's about surviving quite often. And misconception number 3, you just need to get out of your shell. Also no. Social anxiety isn't resolved by forcing yourself into discomfort without safety, but if it's caused by early trauma, it's something that you can unlearn with compassion, nervous system work, and time. And most importantly, you're not alone in this. So to wrap this up, I would like to share some ideas on how to manage social anxiety if you're affected by it. Idea number 1 on how to manage social anxiety is to start with awareness. So you're already doing it by watching this video, for example, here. And understanding that social anxiety is not just your personality, but it's more kind of your nervous system that's trying to protect you, that's already changing a lot. Because you can't change what you can't name. Then idea number 2 for managing social anxiety is build nervous system safety. Social anxiety lives in your body, so healing has to start there. I like to show you one really helpful category of tools and resources for social anxiety that I put out of my re-regulation resources workbook. And that category is looking through your own eyes and seeing skills in general. That's something that you can also apply, for example, in the city center, and you find that on page 11 of our free workbook, Re-Regulation Resources. And I have this method, for example, from hypnotherapy. So a seeing skill is to focus when you're overwhelmed, looking through your own eyes. You try to address the blind spot that you see. This way you just shift your attention or your perception back from an outside perspective that we often have in a socially anxious moment because we are dissociated. That means we are disconnected from our body. And when we do that, we bring our attention back into the body. So focusing on that blind spot, close your eyes or keep them open and directly look through your own eyes. In combination with another technique, I think it's also in here somewhere in the movement skills area, to just focus on your own feet. Just try to stand on them and feel the neutral ground below your feet. Those two skills combined can already help you to bring yourself back into the body. If you now want to download the workbook, you can just go to understandable.net, link in the description as well. You just start your 7-day trial here, and then you can access our workbook because you will be redirected to this page, also to the course page where you can try some of our courses. In class 1, for example, here you can download for free the Re-Regulation Resource book during your free trial. Idea number 3 is to stop performing and to start reconnecting. Practice being yourself. Truly, even in small ways, saying no when you mean it, letting pauses sit, sharing one honest thing in a conversation, for example. Authenticity definitely feels risky at first, but it builds real connection over time. And number 4, go gently and consistently. You don't need to throw yourself into a big social event to prove something. Healing happens in small reps, one safe moment at a time. And I just go into those things now roughly, but to deepen these things in the next episode here on this channel, I will be focused on how to beat social anxiety. So definitely make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss it. And in the end, social anxiety isn't a life sentence. Is definitely a signal. And the more you listen without judgment, the more you can unlearn the fear and relearn connection, especially if social anxiety is caused by early trauma. So what do you think about the topic? Are you currently dealing with social anxiety, a mild form, a severe form? If you want to share that, definitely do so in the comments below. I'm happy to read from you. If you want to support the podcast, definitely subscribe to the channel. And I see and speak to you in the next video on how to beat social anxiety here on the channel. Have a great day.